Well, hello then, I do hope you're all well. And I do hope you all had a fantastic weekend too. Now in this video we're asking, with this cruel, evil PIP process, is it a burden on disabled people and taxpayers as well as the NHS? Now, do you recognise this guy? Yes, it's Neil Coyle, Labour MP for Bermondsey and Southwark, however it's pronounced, who in a previous video I did, he was giving our future Prime Minister Liz Truss the runaround. And, well, here he's asking about waiting times to see a doctor to a rather confused Chloe Smith. And, but he has a method to his madness, because for 5 minutes he was asking about these comprehensive reviews and how long claimants were waiting for their decisions on key support and figures and all that. And then he came out with this question.
I'm assuming there's no one in this room who's unaware of COVID or the pandemic we've had. What's the average wait time to see a GP in your constituency, Minister?
Chair, I'm not sure my constituency is
let me
quite
give an
relevant
example.
to this line of question.
I'll explain it. I've just looked on the NHS app on my phone. If I want an appointment at the Artesian, my GP clinic in Bermondsey, it's more than 16 weeks. My point is, I don't know what your wait time is in Norwich, but if you know that it takes too long to see a GP, longer than a month, perhaps there's a reason to change this process to stop penalising disabled people trying to get their information in time.
I think the broader point here is two things. Firstly, there's ways in which we want to get a range of good evidence in for a PIP application, and we've touched upon that, and we can perhaps go into that in more detail. It doesn't, I think, only and all have to hinge upon what a GP may say. But secondly, and much more broadly, we do, of course, want to be able to help ensure, we as the government want to be able to ensure that people can see a GP when that is needed. There are much broader plans going on to improve that, but that is perhaps for a different committee.
The NHS is struggling. It was struggling before COVID. It's struggling even more now. And DWP is putting pressure on people to go through the NHS to provide this information that they cannot provide within the timescale set out by the department. I'm asking you what you're doing to change that process or improve it, to extend that time frame, or to change the process to prevent that being the case, and the huge cost that that's hitting on the NHS.
Good point, actually.
So there's two slightly different bits of this process. There's the customer returning their own form that they fill in. That's the process where we give them the month and then the further 2 weeks. And that they don't need a GP for that. That is their own form, that's their own evidence, that comes back to us. We then source the further information from the GP. I think we give them suggest a 5-day turnaround for that, and again we'll chase it if it doesn't come back. And you're right, the NHS is under pressure. What we do try and do is not to penalise the customer. So if we haven't got all of the evidence from the medical practitioner, but we think we've got enough evidence from the customer to go ahead and do the assessment, we would do that.
My concern is broader, Chair. It's not just penalising the customer, it's penalising the taxpayer, because the DWP, the department has said that the reason for mandatory reconsiderations and appeals and the huge cost that goes, that millions of pounds, hundreds of millions of pounds that goes on that, is because people haven't provided the medical information at the start of the process. The process is part of the problem. The department provide information to us saying that the mandatory reconsideration stage will give decision makers additional time to proactively contact customers if they think additional evidence may support the claim. So instead of changing the process and changing that time frame, you are burdening taxpayers with additional costs for the department and mandatory reconsideration, and through tribunals where there's a massive backlog and delays. It is a penalty for disabled people, it's a penalty for the department, and it's a penalty to the taxpayer.
And I would share those concerns, and that's why...
Well, what are you doing about it?
Exactly. That is why we're doing a number of things to make sure we get the right decision to people at the earliest possible time, and we can come on to how we do that through the mandatory reconsideration toolbox and how we're trying to reduce the burden of appeals. But there is something really important also to explore here, which is how we are working closely with GPs to improve our services. There's a number of ways we do that. For example, a regular GP forum in which we can take their insights into how we can successfully get a sensible set of medical evidence that fulfills both what is needed for the claimant and what is sensibly needed for the taxpayer. I mean, a related example here, of course, about how we're relieving pressure is the announcement we recently made about extending the professionals who can certify fit notes. You know, we are acutely conscious of the pressure on GP services. We want to make sure that everybody is getting what they need out of the system, and that is why we are, in that case, extending the types of professionals who can take part.
Fit notes. Why are they called fit notes? If you're unfit for work or unfit to do any types of work, why are you calling them fit notes? It's rather Orwellian, isn't it? You know, the Ministry of Love, and you know, you've got the Home Office who are trying to send refugees to Rwanda, and Ministry of Defence who sort out and strategise war and stuff like that. Very Orwellian, isn't it, to me? Fit notes. Just call them sick notes and stop being rather silly about it. If you're sick and you're not fit enough to work, it's a sick note.
Thank you very much.
Oh, no, I'm talking utter drivel when him, whatever the Ministry of Defence strategising about war and nonsense. But you get what I'm talking about. You know, the name is Ministry of Defence and it's all about war. And Home Office, you know, they would rather be shoving their foot on vulnerable people who are in dinghies. It's very Orwellian, isn't it? But Neil Coyle is absolutely bang on the money, isn't he? You know, after the NHS, after it's been torn to bits by this extreme Brexit Tory government with the austerity, and they're now having to deal with the right information for vulnerable people, having to fight a process that, let's be honest, it's clearly isn't being put there to help them, and quite rightly he asked what you're going to do about it. The only thing I felt sorry for him was he was having to stomach the utter Tory drivel and spiel that came back in his direction. Well, anyway, I do hope you enjoyed the video, and until the next time, I shall bid you farewell and take care.